He got his nickname not in the boxing gym, but in the Boy Scouts, when another kid commented on his hairy sideburns. His primitive fighting style fit the moniker, and robbing banks amplified the nickname into something negative. But his criminal behavior came as a shock to those who knew him, as he was shy and soft-spoken. A sensitive man driven to mental illness by a demanding father. He was anything but a... William Lee Sr., better known by his nickname Rabbi, was an unsuccessful pro boxer. He suffered a 3-story fall while working in construction and became disabled for life. He later became a trainer on the periphery of the sport, his 3 sons becoming the surrogate for his prize-fighting aspirations, sending them to the basement of the Annunciation Church in Philadelphia, a place where professional fighters trained. Once there, the now 13-year-old William Jr. sparred with the likes of Ike White, Bobby Watts, and Jimmy Young. Rabbi drove William and his brother Richard past their limits with his brutal workouts. Fed up with his abuse, the boys found his gun one day and decided to play sniper, waiting for their father to come home. Once Rabbi drove up, Lee fired down on him from the 2nd-story window. The bullet missed, and his father sprinted into the house, never knowing where the shot had come from. "That was the type of neighborhood we lived in," Lee said. "There were shots fired all the time." The 13-year-old then looked to suicide as a way of escaping his abusive father. He described taking about 15 yellow pills that his father used for his heart condition. Lee went to sleep, and when he woke up, he found himself unable to move his legs. He was sent to the hospital, but recovered within a day. 3 weeks later, Lee tried again, this time taking 30 to 40 of the pills. He fell unconscious and remained in the hospital for 3 weeks. "Once you attempt suicide once," Lee said, "the idea is always in the back of your head." Making matters worse, a cousin introduced him to drugs, and Lee likened his habit to that of Richard Pryor's. Blind to his son's problems, Lee's father told anyone who would listen that his son was destined to be a champion. Lee himself was embarrassed by the idea. Failing in school, he didn't pass the 10th grade. Not wanting to repeat the year, he dropped out instead. His mother had suffered a stroke, and Lee took care of his sister and 4 brothers. Upon turning 18, Lee joined the army in order to escape his father, but continued boxing in the service. He went AWOL within a year and was dishonorably discharged. Returning to Philadelphia, he looked up old friend Jimmy Young, making the decision to make a living at the only thing he knew how to do: fight. Young introduced him to gangster Blinky Palermo, who introduced him to Don King, who then set up Lee with his son Carl, who would be his manager of record. After decision lost to Don Addison, Lee's father intervened in his career, coercing Don King to void their contract. Now a free agent, Lee was invited to Detroit by Emanuel Stewart, who enlisted him as a sparring partner for Thomas Hearns. Stewart found Lee to be likable, but couldn't help but notice how troubled he was, a young man emotionally broken by his father. "Stewart tried to mold me into his style, but he couldn't do it, and I wasn't going to do it," Lee said. "I was more comfortable fighting the way my father taught me." While fighting under the banner of the Kronk Gym, Lee began his rise up the middleweight rankings. He knocked out Alex Parada on ESPN in April of 1980, before facing Frank the Animal Fletcher in July of that year.
Lee told me this afternoon he expects to put Fletcher away by the 3rd round. Fletcher told me, "No way, Jay." Fletcher connects with a left hand. Fletcher the southpaw in blue. Fletcher scoring there. And the way Lee carries that left hand so low, I would imagine that Fletcher wants to be busy with his right hand.
One position, which is sometimes good and sometimes bad. He looks as though he's very tight yet.
Fletcher connects with a left hand. Lee has an odd way of fighting on the inside. left hand. Lee doesn't do any holding at all on this side, and he's getting punched out by Fletcher. Fletcher continues to pressure Caveman Lee on the far ropes. Lee's taking a lot of punches.
Fletcher is connecting with Lee, and I believe that Lee is a little bit too tight. It's easier to knock a guy out when he's tight than when he's loose. It's sort of like a drunk. Use a drunk as an example. It's hard to hit a drunk. He's moving, he's agile, he's always on the move, and it's hard to hit him squarely.
No question that Lee is looking for the one punch. He's taking 2 or 3 to put in one. Fletcher's problem is to score, but stay away from those damaging blows by Caveman Lee. No question, the man has credentials. He's a heavy hitter.
If Fletcher can stay on top of Lee, he can smother Lee's punches, and Lee's punches won't be effective. If he gets out on the end of Lee's punches, then he will definitely get hurt by him.
Good right hand by Lee. If I were Fletcher, I'd fight Lee on the inside, give him a little room to work in, and at the buzzer,
Fletcher was able to get into him and land some pretty heavy blows.
I know many fans who've followed your career wondering how you've been lately.
Well, at the moment, my bursitis is still bothering me. Hopefully I can clear it up soon and possibly get back. If not, I'm on to other things.
Okay, Dwayne, thank you very much for coming by, and we hope the North American Federation Lightweight Championship. And Dwayne, I look forward to working with you.
I'm looking forward to it too, very much. There's some great fights here. This tournament has really got a lot of talent in it.
Fletcher connected with a strong right hand on Lee, but Lee doesn't look like he's hurt at all. This man is tough.
He carries his hands awfully low. He gets hit.
Fletcher with a good left hand.
He gets hit solid. He doesn't move his head. He doesn't roll with the punch.
Dwayne, I'm surprised Caveman Lee is taking these many punches.
Well, I've known him for a couple of years now. He's always been in there. He's very little defensive movement. He should be moving his head and upper body a little bit more. But he takes a real good punch, but he should not take so many like that, especially the ones these Fletcher is laying on him.
Less than 30 seconds to go in round 3, and Frank Fletcher of Philadelphia has stolen another round, I think.
I think so too. He's been putting a lot of big, heavy punches out there. And Lee is not sticking his jab out in boxing enough.
Looks as though Lee is too tight still.
Oh, there's a strong left hand by Fletcher at the bell. And tournament. Caveman Lee from Detroit in the red trunks. And he connects with the right hand. Fletcher fights his way out of the corner. That's Frank Fletcher in the blue. Lee is 13-1, 12 knockouts.
What is applied to Caveman Lee in between the rounds.
Fletcher spins Lee around and hits him with a couple of shots. Sal Marciano along with Sean O'Grady and Dwayne Butler.
He fights better from the outside. He's a little bit of a slow starter, but he's taken a heck of a pounding this first couple of rounds, and I don't know if he'll be able to get himself on track yet.
Fletcher needs to stay right there. He's got to stay right on top of Lee, whereas Lee won't have the room to punch. And like you said, Dwayne, he's doesn't put his body into his punches, so if Fletcher can stay right on top of him, Caveman Lee won't have any punch.
Frank Fletcher is really cleaning his pocket. Down goes Caveman Lee. Lee didn't hit him with one blow in the last minute. It's been all Frank Fletcher, and Lee is taking the mandatory 8 count. An upset in the making here in round 4. Another left hand, and Lee is sagging on the ropes, taking all the punishment. Frank Fletcher going to town. Oh, he hit him again. And Lee is out on his feet. Frank Fletcher has won this fight. The referee, Vincent Ramon, has stopped it. It's all over. A TKO in the 4th round.
After the bout, Rabbi Lee came into the dressing room and cussed out Emanuel Stewart, blaming him for the loss. Lee intervened, telling his father, "I didn't ask to be a fighter." Lee returned to the Kronk, but asked Bill Miller to train him. 2 months later, he received another televised date against Marcos Geraldo.
The right hand is a calling card. That's Caveman Lee in the red trunks, Geraldo in the blue. And Lee is taking it to him right away. A left hand by Lee staggers Geraldo. He caught Geraldo with a left hook, and Geraldo's on the ropes, and you better believe his head is a little fuzzy. Caveman Lee is throwing leather, and down goes Geraldo. Look out! Look out! Geraldo's on his back. This could be an incredible upset. 8, 9, 10. It's all over. A first-round knockout for Bill Caveman Lee.
Rejuvenated by the victory, Lee went on a win streak, his exciting style earning him fans as he would get knocked down against Jerry Hawley, but arise and stop his foe. In July of 1981, his fighting heart would be on full display against John LeCicero in what is widely considered to be one of ESPN's greatest fights.
I think LeCicero is a very good fighter, and I hope to take him out within 3 or 4 rounds.
Banging middleweights.
And while LeCicero has a great right hand, and we saw Jerry Hawley put Lee down, his manager, Howard Albert, insists it will be the left hook that knocks Caveman Lee to the canvas, if in fact that happens.
They trade left hook knockouts. And of the 7, 6 were in the first round. This fight is only a minute old. Lee with a left hook. LeCicero bangs the body. Lee with a left hook again. And it was LeCicero backed away.
And LeCicero hit him with a good right hand there, but Caveman didn't flinch. And we know that right hand of John LeCicero has power in it. It's produced many of those.
This is the first action for John LeCicero since he lost a 10-round decision to Roberto Sabato. And he takes a left hook and takes another left hook.
And I think that right hand in that exchange hurt him a little bit. Caveman is hitting him with some real shots.
Well, earlier today, a first-round knockout. LeCicero is capable of taking anybody out with one shot. And they say LeCicero has the hardest right hand in the middleweight division. That's quite a bit of praise, and that comes from Randy Gordon, the editor of Ring Magazine. Round 2, scheduled for 10. That's Lee in the white, LeCicero in the green. And LeCicero is eating a lot of jabs. Less than a minute to go in the second round, and both of these heavy-hitting middleweights respect each other so much. We've had very little fighting on the inside. LeCicero just tagged Lee with a right hand. Now LeCicero's got him at close quarters, but Lee battles back with a right hand and then a right uppercut.
And that right hand landed right on the button, but Lee did not flinch, and he's doing some great counterpunching in the corner.
Caveman Lee is really showing us some class here. He was cornered by LeCicero, and he is pounding his way out. He tagged LeCicero with a left hook, comes up with a right uppercut. LeCicero isn't doing anything at all as this second round is coming to a close.
I think Lee demoralized him a little bit. He took that big right hand, and he didn't even move.
Now LeCicero hammers Lee with a left hook. Lee with a left hand of his own. A right hand by Lee. A left hand by Lee. A right uppercut by Lee. And there's the bell that marks the end of the second round.
He did some great counterpunching in that corner.
Round 3 scheduled for 10. That's LeCicero in the green, Lee in the white. Neither fighter's been down, neither fighter's been cut. And they certainly have
kept. This fight is being fought. He's staying out. Oh, good right hand by LeCicero. That stunned Caveman.
And LeCicero took a shot as he moved in, a glancing blow. Not a heavy right hand. Not too much damage. That's a slip by LeCicero as he moved back.
Unlike Lee, who's been punching in combination.
First, LeCicero and his manager, Harry Albert, knowing coming into here to Detroit that they've got to be busy and aggressive because it'll be tough to get the nod in Lee's hometown. Less than a minute to go in round 3.
Big left hook by Caveman, and I think that shook up John LeCicero. And he's holding on right now. Now he's in trouble.
And LeCicero failing to tie up Lee, and it cost him because he was hitting the body with a tremendous...
Good left hook. So Caveman fighting off the ropes has been really devastating so far in this fight. Let's see if LeCicero can turn things around.
This is the 4th round scheduled for 10.
Title.
4th round is only a minute old. 1980, a so-so year for LeCicero with 3 victories and 2 defeats. That other defeat was a 10th round TKO suffered against Marcus Geraldo, who Lee beat in 1 round in Chicago last September. Lots of cross currents here in the middleweight division. Of his 3 victories in 1980, LeCicero pitched a 10-round decision victory over Teddy Mann. Mann gave Bobby Ches a heck of a time in Atlantic City, even though Bobby won.
And Mann also came in here to Detroit and gave Mickey Goodwin a tough battle. So, and LeCicero's been much more aggressive in this round. He had Lee pinned against the corner, against the ropes rather, and hit him with some good shots. And so far, this round's been a good one for LeCicero.
Halfway through round 4. And the pace is really slowed.
Yes, it has, principally from Lee's standpoint. LeCicero actually picked these big right hand, and that buckled the knees of Caveman Lee's in trouble.
And a right uppercut did more damage, and LeCicero is now cleaning up on Caveman Lee, who needs the bell. Another right hand by LeCicero, and suddenly, LeCicero's come alive, crashing a right cross on the head of Caveman Lee, and then hitting him with a right uppercut. And now LeCicero scores another right hand, and Lee's in trouble. Lee's on Green Street. LeCicero is cleaning up here in the round 4. Less than 30 seconds to go. We told you LeCicero's got a big right hand. He's got a big knot underneath his right eye that has just developed, just as he is absolutely pounding Caveman Lee. We have seen Lee's ability to come back from knockdowns and heavy blows before. We'll fill you in as we go along. Right now, Lee is bleeding from the left nostril because John LeCicero took over here in the 4th round. There's the bell. Wow. We'll be back. 5 scheduled for 10. Caveman Lee was in control until LeCicero exploded in that 5th round. Now LeCicero takes a right hand from Lee on the left side of his face.
And Johnny LeCicero looks very tired. He may have punched himself out in that last flurry. And Caveman is on the attack now. What a fight. LeCicero's got against Jerry Holly, and we just saw it now when he survived that barrage from John LeCicero.
Lee now working the body on John LeCicero. A right cross by Lee. Another right. A right uppercut by Lee. Lee with a left hook. LeCicero is flat-footed and on the ropes, and he's holding on.
And Caveman Lee again astounds us with this comeback, and Johnny LeCicero looks very fatigued.
Just under 2 minutes to go in this, the 5th round. Plenty of time. Now LeCicero is winging with both hands, and Lee throws a right to the left side of LeCicero. They're looking for punching room. A left hook by Lee. A left hook by LeCicero. Lee comes back with a left and a right. Lee with a right uppercut. Another right hand by Lee, and LeCicero is down. He's on his left side. The count is 6, 7, 8, 9. He just beats the count. LeCicero is up at 9. Plenty of time for Caveman Lee. Lee with a left uppercut. A right to the body. A right uppercut. LeCicero has got him in an arm lock. Lee is looking for room. Lee with a right hand. LeCicero takes a left hook. LeCicero takes another left hook. LeCicero takes a right hand. And Caveman Lee takes a right hand from LeCicero. A right uppercut by LeCicero. And LeCicero comes back with a right hand. Another right hand by LeCicero. And LeCicero now has got Lee in trouble. A right hand. Lee's on the ropes. LeCicero is coming back like a madman. It's all John LeCicero here in the 5th round. What a fight.
And either of these fighters could go at any moment. They're both fatigued and they are both hurt. And either man could go down at any moment. And they're both staggering around the ring.
Less than 30 seconds to go. And they are slamming each other with heavy shots. Neither is going down at this point, but there goes LeCicero, a left hook. And he is really hurting. He's on his right side. 8, 9. Good night, sweet prince. Caveman Lee has knocked out John LeCicero. biggest victory of his career.
An incredible finish. Caveman Lee again flirts with disaster and comes back, and there we see Johnny Cicero. They're giving him smelling salt, and he took a fearsome beating from Caveman Lee, but boy, he dished it out as well. I don't know what Caveman Lee can do to top his performances here on ESPN.
You gave us the biggest action fight we have had on our network.
Thank you. And it was a lot of action towards me because I was in there taking it.
Let's bring in
always
John.
come back because you never. We both were created equal, and he could have hurt me just as bad as I hurt him. But it just, I think I had a little more experience over him, and how to tie him up and everything. So, what can I say?
A short left hook did it. Question from Al Bernstein.
Caveman, this is about the third or fourth time we've seen the same scenario acted out by you on ESPN. Can you continue to do this as you move up the rankings and fight higher-ranked fighters? Will this strategy work against those fighters?
Well, I think the lower-ranked fighters like John Cicero are much better fighters than some of them that's in the top 10. They don't really belong there. And I know John feels the same.
I was going to mention that probably John's the best fighter that you've encountered.
He's the best fighter I've encountered in a long time, besides the cat that I first fought on ESPN in Chicago last year. I forgot his name. He's a Puerto Rican fighter.
Oh, Marcos Araldo, you knocked him out in the first round.
Oh, that was one of the easiest fights I ever had. And he was rated up there in the top 10.
In March of 1982, Lee received an unexpected title shot against Marvelous Marvin Hagler. The narrative given to the public was that Lee was brought in as a last-minute substitute for his injured stablemate Mickey Goodwin. But Goodwin had been injured since October, and Lee had over 6 weeks to prepare for the title challenge. He was either going to be the middleweight champion or it would be his last fight, Stewart said. If a guy can't win the title, there's no sense being in boxing. We gave him a puncher's chance against Hagler. If he hit him, he could knock him out. Lee was in shape physically, but mentally he froze once he entered the ring.
It was the win over Marcos Geraldo that jumped Lee up into the world rankings. And now here is the introduction of the champion, and it should get quite a roar from the crowd gathered here in this room, some 2,000 of them.
3 wins, 2 losses, 2 draws, with 44 knockouts. Ladies and gentlemen, from Rock the Mass, the undisputed middleweight champion of the
At the peak of his career right now, and hopeful he gets 2 inches in reach, giving away 1 in height. The age is 29 for Hagler and 25 for Lee.
Do you have any questions?
So that formality is concluded. The judges are Paul Cavalieri, Joe Cortez, and Joe Santerpia. The referee Hazard, and remember, Larry Hazard does not. The champion is a left-hander. Lee can go both ways. And the indication to us from the Lee camp was that he would try to come strong and try at the very beginning to upset the tempo of the champion. And he just scored with a good left hook to the side of the head of Marvin Hagler here in the early going. Stiff right hand by Hagler. Hard left hand. Lee goes down, face down on the canvas. It was a left and a right and a left, and Lee's in trouble. Hazard takes a look at him. Lee says he's all right. He doesn't look it. He's wobbly. He's in trouble. A right hand, a left hook to the side of the head. And he is in serious trouble. A left hook to the jaw. Lee can barely stand. Another right hand by Hagler. Back into the ropes he goes. Hagler pounding Caveman Lee here in the opening round. Hagler said he didn't want it to go very long, and it's not going to go very long. It is over. Lee sags against the ropes. He's out of it. Marvin Hagler has knocked him out.
After the bout, Lee tested positive for quinine and morphine, the chemical components of heroin. Lee protested, saying that he had been unable to urinate and that someone from his dressing room supplied the urine sample. The athletic commission suspended his license. Trainer Stewart tried to convince Lee to retire after the fighter admitted that he couldn't take a punch anymore. Rabbi once again cursed out Stewart, blaming him for his son's humiliating loss. Stewart employed his legal team to sever all ties with Lee and his father. Stewart ruined Cave, Rabbi said. You have to stay on top of Cave to get him to train, and Stewart didn't do it. I'll tell you this much. If Cave had listened to Daddy, he'd be the middleweight champion of the world right now, and filthy rich. Lee stopped talking to his father after the fight. His 20-year-old brother, Baron, was found dead in a Philadelphia riverbed, having committed suicide. Lee didn't come home for the funeral, not wanting to see his father again. He married his girlfriend, Francine, and talked vaguely of buying a business, but instead he lapsed into a depression, withdrawing from life. His wife recalled going to work during the day and returning home in the evening to see the fighter still in bed. The $50,000 he earned for the Hagler fight quickly disappeared. The New Jersey State Athletic Commission reinstated Lee, but he didn't want to fight anymore. "I guess I just didn't have the heart for it," Lee said. "I don't know if I ever did. I never liked boxing. I guess it was just something that was drilled into me." Lee found work as a general laborer through Manpower Temporary Services, but didn't make more than $100 per week. He got a job delivering newspapers and then worked as a bouncer for $3.50 an hour at night. Needing money, he contacted manager Al French and expressed his desire to get back into the ring. French obliged, arranging for a fight with fringe contender Teddy Mann, but 2 days before the bout, Lee canceled, claiming to have an abscess on his lower gum. Jim Insider said that he was no more ready to step in the ring than he was to pilot a nuclear submarine. Lee once again thought of committing suicide, a family curse as he thought of his brother Baron and a cousin who also shot himself in the head. He parked in a secluded area with a loaded rifle on his lap. He brought the barrel of the gun to his lips, but an hour later realized that he lacked the heart to pull the trigger. He unloaded the rifle and placed it into his gym bag. While former stablemates Thomas Hearns and Milton McCrory were entering the ring in Las Vegas to large paydays, Lee pulled a black ski mask over his head and entered a bank, waving his rifle. He ordered the customers and employees to the ground. The bank manager and another employee threw $18,000 into his bag. Lee drove away, but a tear gas bomb exploded in the bag. Red smoke plumed out of his 1973 AMC wagon, forcing the fighter to park on the street, where he was apprehended. "I figured it would go one of two ways," Lee said. "I would either get caught and be sent to prison, or killed. I didn't go into that bank for the money. I went in there to die." Lee was charged with armed robbery. Trainer Emmanuel Stewart paid over $27,000 to help with Lee's attorney fees. Lee was sentenced to 2.5 to 10 years, being found guilty but mentally ill, with a recommendation of lenience. Lee was released in 1986, doing nothing but pounding the heavy bag in prison for 4 years. He made an immediate return to the ring, taking on Orlando Paulding in Detroit.
Bill, over the last 3 years or so, it's been to the top and to the very, very bottom. How have you held up with the whole thing?
I guess my willpower and the will to survive, and I guess the grace of God too.
Has the trip to prison changed you?
I think it made me a little more smarter and a little more refined person. Last time I was petty footing around, and this time I'm serious.
Now, you weren't able to fight in prison. It's not allowed there anymore. You've been out since December. How much real work have you gotten in? What kind of shape are you in?
I think I'm in the best shape of my life because, that little term in prison, it was a standstill in time. It gave me time to get my body in shape, and that's what I used it for.
Now, you've been able to do some boxing. Of course, you worked with McCrory recently prior to his most recent fight. What other things have you done to get in boxing shape?
Well, I've been training at Chronic Boxing Gym, and with their team, and I think that's the best place in Detroit to get boxing. So that's why I've been working out it, and I've been getting put in there boxing. You're
29. Can you give back one more title shot? Is that in the cards? You don't have a lot of time.
Well, time will tell. Well, I'm not. I can still make some money without getting a title shot, but if a title shot just happened to come my way, I'll take it.
Standing up and waving him go away. Now you wonder, is the lack of forgiveness for the outside the ring problems, or was the lack of forgiveness? Oh my!
I think Caveman Lee is back. I think Caveman Lee is back. A left hook and a straight right hand, and Orlando Paulding was out.
Lee remained out of the game until nearly 2 years later when he was hired to be Donald Curry's sparring partner in Italy. When a fighter dropped off the card, Lee filled in. He was knocked out in 3 rounds. "My mind said go," Lee said, "but but my body said no, so it was time to get out of the game. He returned home to Philadelphia and had another unfortunate run-in with his father, this time stabbing him 3 times. Rabbi didn't press charges, but in 1993, Lee was once again arrested after robbing a bank. He pled guilty and told the judge that he deserved life in prison. The judge gave him 12. Lee stated that once in prison, he finally freed himself from what he called the gorilla on his back. Jesus Christ delivered me from drugs, Lee said. He was released from prison in 2006, finding work in a car parts store and later a construction company. He has remained sober to the day. I don't know what I would have done in life if I had followed my own dreams, Lee said. I don't even know what my dreams were. My pop gave me his dreams.